picture, yes.
Patricia
God
McKim.
bless her.
I showed my
Okay,
son
our-
this picture,
I'd
and
like
he
to
said,
call
would you
the
go to one of those
reconvened
historical photograph
excuse me.
places? He thought it was my
Stephen
sister, or my little sister.
I'd like to call to reconvene the business meeting today for interviews for the remainder of town committees, boards, and authorities.
You ready for Pat?
And our first person will be Patricia McKim. They can all come in here.
The doctor is ready.
That's a sore spot. Let me know that.
Would you like it to?
You're
I'll
right
sit
here.
down.
Sit right here.
So in case Gavin comes, he can stay together.
This is where everyone sits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for applying. And the way this works is we have your application here in front of us, and we've looked at it. If you have something that wasn't on here that you needed to add, please feel free to do that. But otherwise, we just go around the table and each take turns asking you a question.
Far away.
Okay. All right. We usually start over here. Greg usually starts us off.
Okay. You list an impressive amount of volunteer work. You're currently working for Vincentian Foundation Board and served as Town of McCandless Community Day Committee. What do you see yourself doing in connection with being a member of the North End Public Library Board?
Well, I just think a library is extremely important to any community. I think even though things have greatly changed in terms of how things are done in the library, you don't use the card catalog anymore, and you don't do that sort of thing. But I think you disseminate information and knowledge. And I think that is so important in any community. And I just feel that with my background in education and in the other things I've done, that I can make a contribution.
Yeah.
Exactly how, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It depends.
You do have a master's in
Human resources.
graduate school of library and information.
Right, I
Oh,
went-
you graduate credits. You just
Right,
Okay.
I went to SLIS, School of Library and Information Science at Pitt for a while, and I had about 18 graduate credits there. But what I ended up doing was getting a master's in human resources from LaRoche. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Pat.
What do you think your greatest assets, like strength, would be that you bring to the committee?
I think I'm willing to speak up. I won't sit back and just listen. I will speak up if I feel I have something to say. I think I'm a basically kind person, so I try not to hurt other people's feelings in general. I mean, I'm sure sometimes I do. But I think that's very important, to be aware of each person's talents and each person's limitations
Great.
and what I can add.
Yeah, thank you.
Pat, I'm sure as you are aware, the library has a tremendous amount of programs. Would you be willing, or do you have the time to be able to work on some of these programs? Because being on the board, we're asked frequently to be part of those programs and help out.
I think so.
You could.
Because as you're aware, I'm officially completely retired
Right,
this
okay.
year from my,
Okay, so you would be interested?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Pat, obviously I know you.
do you?
I don't get any questions, but good luck.
I don't usually ask any questions, but why him?
He's my husband. I'm
was gonna ask you
related
that question.
just through marriage.
I meant why.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
I don't think I have any questions either. Thank you. Your resume speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Is that it?
That's it.
That wasn't too terrible,
No.
was it?
No.
Hey, Pat, I forgot to hand you the keys.
Okay.
Do you want me to pass them to her?
I'll sit.
We're down to
May I
one
sit for
car
a
right
while?
now.
Certainly.
Is that okay?
Yeah, this is an open meeting. Anyone is allowed to be in there.
Yeah.
We're down to one car.
Yeah.
Oh, are you?
Well, right now,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I'm paying insurance on
Thanks for
4
coming in.
but we only have possession of one.
No,
I have Abby is next. Is that who's
Amanda's
next?
got one, Andrew's got the other.
yeah, Abby Cost.
Okay. Abby Lacostick? Okay. Heritage Center, great. Hi, thank you. Kelsey?
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for applying. And I tell everyone the same thing, just in case you were not out, whatever. So we have your application here, and we appreciate you applying. And if there's something that you would like to add, something that's changed or something additional, you can do that. Otherwise, we just go around and ask you a question, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay?
I've been volunteering at the Heritage Center since June. So
Okay.
it was a happy accident. I walked in and I met Suzanne Schnupp, and she said, "Oh, would you like to become a volunteer?" And I said, "Yes, I would."
And we're glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I became a stay-at-home mom about 2 years ago, so I was looking for something to use the adult part of my brain during the day. So I'm glad to have this as an outlet.
Abby, yeah, you began volunteering in June of 2019, and you have a background in museums, right?
I do.
Yeah, and so how do you think how do you think that background will help you then?
I've been doing a lot of work in the basement of the Heritage Center to sort through all of the objects and files. So that's been a really interesting endeavor for me. I've never really been on that side of the museum world. I've been more of the front of house kind of things and operations, visitor services, and the museum store. So I've really enjoyed doing that. And then I believe that I can bring those front of house talents to the table as well. Once I sort through everything in the basement. That's my goal.
Maybe we can get you out of the basement.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a whole nother
I
issue.
do.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Abby.
Sure.
Do you have any ideas of anything like improvements or fundraising for?
For fundraising,
Yeah.
events are obviously the most important thing in running a museum like that and getting the word out and getting visitors in the door. I don't currently have any ideas on the table about events, but obviously that's what this committee is all about. So I know that the people on the committee have a great deal of resources for people in the community who, have relationships in the history world. So I'm eager to meet those people.
Great, thank you.
Well, Carolyn took my question, but I'm on the board. And we are constantly looking for ideas and trying to have something at least once a month. But we would hope some new people that come on would bring some fresh ideas. So would you be able to work on any of these ideas?
Yeah.
And be able to put in some time?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a pretty flexible schedule
Good.
as it is. So I tend to go on Wednesdays. I know that's when the committee meeting is.
Right.
But I'm available evenings, weekends.
Super,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Hi, Abby, it's nice to meet you. I'm
Hi.
Bill McKim.
You too.
This is close to my last meeting on council.
I heard.
I'm retiring from council,
Congratulations.
but it'll be nice to watch Monday Night Football in the
I'm
future.
sure.
But seriously, do you have any general ideas about what the mission of the museum should be in terms of just what kind of things it ought to be doing?
Yeah. I would like to see more visitors to the museum, more, foot traffic during the day, people coming into the park, more, a sign outside that says, like, we're open, please come in. I know that there are signs right now, but just become a bigger part of the community and offer different things, different displays, different activities, month to month.
Thank you. Good luck here, Judy.
Thanks.
No questions from me?
Your resume's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
All right, thank
Very
you.
nice.
These two people not here.
One's here.
Thank you.
Okay, get your purse.
Should
Oh,
we
geez,
early?
yes, thank you.
Dana Getz?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, nice to meet you, and thanks for coming and volunteering.
Hi. Okay, so we have your application here, and if there's something else that you'd like to add, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, we'll just go around the table and ask whatever questions we have, okay? All right?
Well, I think my CV and personal statement are pretty thorough, so I don't want to be redundant.
They are. They are.
I guess probably the only thing I don't know if it reflects on paper is just my personal passion for libraries in the community and just how Northland has affected me growing up and my family. And I just, when I saw this came up, it just, I saw it as a great opportunity to try to give back, and just really excited for the opportunities. So thank you guys.
Dana, I noticed you worked with Northland Public Library to make their programs more accessible for all children. Could you give me an example of how you make the programs more accessible to all children?
Well, I mean, I didn't create the programs. That was just with my business. We worked with the foundation for when we wanted to give donations.
Okay.
We talked specifically about that, and so there were certain things with the I'm going blank on the name. The outdoor library, the outdoor
Learning
Learning
garden.
Learning.
the learning garden. So with that, and then we specifically focused on the e-readers and large print books and things like that that would be reserved for accessibility issues.
And you have multiple relationships, according to your resume, with Avalon Library and several other Light of Light mission. You worked with them.
I haven't worked with Light of Life in some years. I have a community project called Knit Hope, and
Okay.
So with them, I've worked with different organizations, and then libraries have just been a great resource for us over the years. They're collection sites, so that's why I have connections with Avalon, and I used to work with Bain Library in Bellevue, and then Northland has been a big resource.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
In which ways would you like to contribute?
Well, I think what is most exciting to me in the idea of helping on the board is when I kind of think about it from my own perspective and just working with the library or going to the library and seeing that, and then also going back through the notes for the past couple of years on the board meetings. I kind of see it as a two-pronged thing, that the board has kind of two big jobs from my perspective, which is continuing to move the mission forward, and really thinking creatively of, we're in 2020 and what's the purpose of a library in this day? It's continually changing, and Northland's really, again, it's from my perspective, really been moving with the times and doing all sorts of innovative programming. And so I think my background in education and literature and writing, my work with community programming, I think would be great to kind of continue being very open about, well, what are some different ways we can look at growing this and continuing the mission, and I'm really excited about that. But I also think there's another side of it, which is just the really practical side. There's budget, and we need a new HVAC system, and how do we afford that, and how do we price that out? And it's that sort of thing that just keeps the lights on. And so I think my experience with my business background is helpful. I don't have any formal business training. My husband and I don't. We have a successful practice, and it's just because we have a very practical mindset of, you know, cash in, cash out, and if I'm the client, what's the best thing to do? And so I think I would just kind of, you know, go in those two, like really focusing on those two things, and that would be my approach. So see what they need.
Thank you.
Dana, are you from McCandless?
Yes. Well, no. I was born. I was raised in Ross,
Okay,
and then I've lived here for 10 years.
okay. If you were chosen to be on the board, would you come with any kind of ideas? Because we're always looking for ways to raise money to benefit the library, as you mentioned, that we certainly are in need. And so, you know, I was just wondering if you had any kind of ideas in your mind of things that might be done.
From a fundraising perspective,
Well, in any kind of activity, bringing more people in, raising money.
I guess I wouldn't have something right off the top of my head right now for you. I mean, I think I'd have to think about it. But I will say that I've had a lot of experience with, you know, different community organizations, and I've seen how they've gone about it. I work with North Hills Community Outreach a lot, and they've had a lot of success, I think, in some of their approaches. But I also just really have a lot of creative energy, and I think that would be something that I would be really interested in. The marketing perspective I've used for the business and for the community or the community project that I run. I think I would have to dig into it a little bit. I don't want to just give a flippant answer to you because I think it's a serious thing. But I think that I have a real strength there that I could bring in. And I know, having worked with the foundation before, I've seen some things that they've done that are really positive. I've been to some of the events, and I think they're good. But probably digging, I don't have the insight that you would have on the board right now, but I probably want to dig a little deeper into who's been coming, who's been involved so far, and then really starting to see, well, how else can we reach out? Because I just see the library is more and more of a community center, not just a place to get books. And I know I've seen all the programming with youth. My kids have gone to a lot of the programs, the STEM programs, and that's continuing to grow. And I think that's a good trajectory. I want to build on it. But as far as the fundraising goes, you know, I would just have to think creatively. And I have friends who are also, they work with marketing in different community organizations. I'd probably reach out to, honestly, for some ideas.
So you would be willing to work on programs?
Yeah, actually, that's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Okay.
I certainly could do the practical stuff too. I mean, the daily grind things, but I love that kind of stuff.
Okay, good, thank you.
Dana, I'm Bill McKim. I just wanted to say hello. I think you've answered extensively already, so I really don't have any.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, which is fine. I think you made very nice and good, solid remarks. But good luck to you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions either.
I know about your Knit Hope.
I know.
And-
I just saw you the other weekend.
Yes, it's a very impressive program that you've just started up yourself that you work on. I don't have any questions. It looks like with your marketing and your writing and your education, though, that you have a lot to offer. Thank you for applying.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in and thanks for your help.
No problem. Yeah, I enjoy it.
This is the next
Thank,
one.
oh,
Well, we might as
Reach
well.
you across.
Come back.
And I looked at her.
Thank you.
I was like, Chris, she puts one for the library. Yeah,
We're a little bit ahead of time, but is
Diane.
is Diane
Dad, is
Ellis?
Diane,
Oh,
is Diane out there? No? Okay,
It's a little
we're early, we're early.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, are you trying to get her attention? Is someone else out there?
There's nobody else.
Okay,
Can we pause?
why don't you just go ahead and go home? You're welcome to stay and watch the meeting if you want to, but
Thank you for,
Wait.
everyone for coming.
You're back on.
There we go.
The way this works is exactly how it went the last time that you did this. We
Catch
have
your
your application here in front of us and your resume.
Okay.
And if you have something additional that you'd like to say or add, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, we'll just go around the table, ask you a question,
Okay.
and go from there.
All right, well, I did put this together. As you know, I've been on this committee for 2 years. I've been the chairwoman for the 2 years that it's existed. So I put this together of the things we have done, so you can look at that as
Okay,
well.
a nice summary.
Mhm.
Greg, you
Uh,
want to start?
Yeah, Diane, you're the current president of this organization, right? And how's it going?
Good, good.
Very good. I may say, very good.
Hey.
I'm talking to Greg.
I don't
No,
know.
she's talking.
No, it took us a little while to get up to speed, because, you know, usually when you are appointed to a committee, you kind of, you're working with people who've been there before. We started from ground zero, and so all 5 of us were new, and I was made the president with no experience. So it took us a little while to get up to speed, but I'm really happy with the way things are going.
Okay,
Over
great.
the past year, we've had programming every year. We've done our first big fundraiser. We have 2 planned for next year, so I'm happy with the way it's going.
Okay, thank you.
Any new goals or ideas for the next year that you wanna do?
Well, yeah, I mean, we really want to try to up the money we're raising. In the beginning, we were working on protocols and policies, and that all has to be set, but that's not bringing in the money. So now we're excited that we can start doing the stuff that is fun, the programming, the fundraising, things like that. So this year we did our first fundraiser, it was the Notorious North Hills, went really well. Next year we have 2 planned, so yeah, I'm
Great.
excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mhm.
As I said, that I interrupted. You're doing a very good job,
Thank you.
and I support you wholeheartedly.
Thank you. I just, it is such an exciting place to work, to be involved in. I mean, I'm a Kansas resident, I've been my whole life, went to NA, graduated from NA, and we are so fortunate to have something like this, and I'm really happy to be able to use my experience in helping promote this. So I hope that you will appoint me so I can continue working on it.
And you bring a lot of good ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
in terms of the, I would say growth, do you see the center growing physically or in terms of the mission that it has?
Well, physically, I don't see it growing, but what we need to do is to get more people involved in it. In January, I started a Facebook page for the Friends of the Heritage Center, and we're up to about 320 followers. So things like that, I really want to get more people involved in what we're doing. I talked to a lot of people about the Heritage Center, and I think we need to really work on people recognizing it, because I'll say the Heritage Center, like, I don't know what that is, and like, that little red schoolhouse in Ankara, oh yeah, I know what that is. So that's what we need to work on, is that identification.
I have no other questions, but there's a lot of things that you've done, and I've gone to something, Notorious North Hills, I thought that was really an excellent program, I don't know whether,
That was so much fun.
yeah, that was really,
Yeah.
were you in that, or were you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I wrote it and presented it.
Well, you did a great
Yeah.
job.
Thank you,
No question from me.
thanks,
I think you're doing a great job also.
thank you.
I'm very pleased with the variety of things that you're doing there, the creativity of the things that you're doing there. I think you're doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we post the link to that Facebook page on our page so we can kind of up her visibility a little bit?
That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that one on our page and then see if we can, some of your members to that also.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Okay.
Coming in?
Okay. 19 will be,
Okay.
okay?
Sure we know a few people in common.
Dan Robinson, yeah. Nice to
I don't
see
wanna
you
start
again.
naming everybody I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Diane, for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Never mind.
I'm sorry, what are we starting?
She's telling you to
We're gonna have it
start.
right here? Okay.
That's where we always have it.
Okay, I'm with you, now I understand. Call to order, the Services Committee. Item 2, the Fire Marshal's report for the month of October 2019, and permit report for November 2019. Dan, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. The month of October was an extremely busy month for the three fire companies. We ran a total of 153 calls, 92 of those being fire-related and 61 of them being EMS-related. That brings us to a year to date of 877 fire calls for the three fire companies. Also had a very good month for the false alarms. We were able to collect $3,500 to put into the sinking fund, brings us a total of $9,800 for the apparatus replacement program. Very busy month again, October for the three fire companies. As you know, it's Fire Prevention Month. So the three fire companies have been throughout the numerous daycares and schools and various community organizations preaching the good word, as you might say. Just another, just a report, important dates as we all know, this coming Saturday, the 14th. Just a reminder for the appreciation banquet at the Chadwick, and doors open at 6 p.m. If anybody has any questions about the report, please let me know.
On the false alarm side of it, you said, where are they coming? I know you got a report here, I was trying to figure it out. Who's generating those? Is it a who or what entities? Is there any generalizations you can make as to
There's a lot of who's, as you know. We have well over 800 some occupancies, commercial occupancies. The majority of the false alarms are generated from the commercial side. We don't find any of the residents.
Are they showing any improvement? I guess it's good news and bad news. You can make the money, but then you get all these false alarms.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, of
Yeah.
course. More technology means more, subject to failures, and it's better to have them than to not. I agree to that.
Okay. Anything else? Now, the item number 3, code enforcement's violation / complaint statistics report for the month of November 2019.
Is there any questions on that?
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, that we're, with Jeff Shaneman's efforts, he's prepared a violation report that now we'll incorporate into our monthly reporting process. There were 36 complaints, inspected 32 violations, and you can see in your report that there are the different categories of complaints that he investigated. So that's something that you'll see moving forward, so you get a sense of the work that is being done in that effort.
Is that the one that's under automatic alarm billing /
It's
right there?
It's right before the Public Works report. It's on the back side of the building inspection, or the permits report.
The last permit.
Is there anything else?
No,
I'd like to just remind citizens that if they do have a complaint, that this form is on the town website, so you can fill that out, and then it will be sent to the appropriate department and investigated.
I think I'd read it already, the code enforcement's violation complaint statistics report for the month of November 2019. Who's,
that I just,
oh, that's,
I
I
just
just said it.
Yeah, Jeff
was it,
Shaner.
okay. Right, and are there any comments from council on any of these items? In public, anybody in public have any comments?
Start glazing my windows.
Okay, that's, I'll close the services committee meeting then.
Thank you.
Call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. You've seen and reviewed the Public Works report. Are there any comments or questions on that?
Thank you for extending leaf pickup. Made a lot of people happy.
Yeah, the cold weather and ice kind of have slowed us down, but we're getting there.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for them? Review the bid tabulations for the town hall HVAC renovations.
Okay, you all received copies of the bid tabulation from the bids that were opened on November 27th. I wanted to point out that we did receive no fire protection bid, and when you total all of those categories together of the various aspects of the bid. Now this is, keep in mind, this was just for the air handling unit and the work in the police department. There was no other work associated with this. Bids, when you factor in an estimated cost for fire protection, would be just under $300,000. To put it into perspective, after speaking with the engineers, with Mark, Tricia and I, speaking with the engineers, we budgeted $250,000 for 2020, anticipating being able to do the HVAC work downstairs as well as security work and everything else. So I'll leave that comment hanging at this point. I think it speaks for itself.
Any questions from council? Any questions from the public?
So where do we go from here?
Move a little fast.
We'll have the recommendation in writing to you this week to where we think we want to go with that.
5 fans.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from the public? I hereby close the Public Works Committee meeting.
I call to order the zoning committee meeting for December 9th, 2019. The first item is review the preliminary and final subdivision application for the plan known as Zell 2 Inc. Plan of lots for EIG 14T development located on a vacant parcel on Corbett Drive as per project number 13207, sheet 101, prepared by Hampton Technical Associates, dated September 30th, 2019.
Okay, this is, that EIG 14T is actually the fancy logo for 814. It's hard to write that down there, the way that it come out. We have with us tonight John Jutarski. This is located on Corporate Drive, and it's, we always called it Parcel C. It was created many, many years ago, I think in the 1970s, as part of the Radisson development, which we've had in the last 30-some years probably 4 approvals for that site. This one's actually going to get built. Right, John?
Yes, sir.
So in order to facilitate this, the property has to be subdivided, and I'll let John explain the subdivision. John, I have a pointer if you just want to stand there at the microphone and tell me when to press the buttons to move everything forward.
Well, for the subdivision, we can really just take a look at this one. As we get into the next item, we can scroll through the slides. Good evening, as Bruce said, I'm John Jutarski. I'm with 814 Development. We're working with KinderCare on siting a daycare center on this lot 1, which is the southern half of this subdivision. Working with Zell 2, we are going to be subdividing, and that's the plan that we have. Zell 2 will remain ownership of the top 2/3, really, and we will take ownership of this bottom third and site our KinderCare location there. We will maintain most of that existing parking lot that's there and the existing driveway.
That existing driveway and that existing parking lot was actually put in probably 20 years ago as part of the Lone Star development. Council at the time was worried about there being inadequate parking for the Lone Star, so we required the developer to put in this parking lot, and it's seen very little use over the years. The Holy Trinity Church used it as an overflow parking at one point, but That's about all, so it'll finally get used. It's actually, well, you'll see, John will. But are there any questions on the subdivision part of this?
The next part of it is the review of the preliminary and final development plan application for the plan known as McCandless Kindercare for the 814 development located on a vacant parcel on Corporate Drive as per project number 19-23-274, sheets C100 to C902, prepared by ISG, dated September 20th, 2019, with the latest revision being, what's the latest revision?
It's blank, we'll have the latest revision. We haven't done our final review, so we just left it blank for now. We'll have it for the voting meeting.
So yeah, on the cover sheet of our presentation, this is what our facility will look like. That'll be almost the exact same color scheme. Might be a slight change in the brick color, but very similar to that. That is the signage that we have on the building. And then that's the lower right-hand corner is looking back into a play area. So we do a synthetic turf through the play area, maintaining drainage and grade. And that's just an overview of where we're located, their zoning. It's gonna be just under 12,000 square feet and just over 10,000 square foot of play area, outdoor play area.
You're gonna be fencing around that play area?
Absolutely. Going to the fencing, so the
Electric?
entire. Oh, boy. I'll leave that one alone. The entire facility, from the front corners of the building all the way around, are secured in fencing. The play areas additionally are fenced. Each age group has their own play area, so they're further separated. That's a shot just of the current, the existing conditions as it sits currently. What this is indicating is the sections of the asphalt that we'll be removing, and then where the detention basin is. This is actually the south end of the property, towards the intersection of Babcock and Corporate on the south end.
And that pond stays in place?
It's actually going to be enlarged and in that place, and I'll show you that a little further down.
Will the
Is there a
gardens stay
reason?
that are there? Because isn't there like a wall and gardens? Will that all stay?
Well, the east side of the property with the slope that's heavily landscaped, that will be staying. Everything up on the surface, which is pretty vacant, will be cleared, and we'll be adding additional landscaping as well.
Will you be pointing to those things while you're talking about them so we know which way is
Absolutely.
east on this, like with your pointer, like
Yep.
now?
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So,
North
so
is
this
left.
is actually the east side. North is to the
Good.
left, right?
Nice, good job.
So everything back here, going towards Babcock, is a significant slope. All of that landscaping will be staying. This detention basin will be expanding, which is part of the reason why a lot of the removal of the asphalt. And also, we're reducing the amount of parking that's on this property to increase the pervious surface.
Is there a reason there's not a second entrance? I know the way most of these daycares are that I see around here, these parents are in a hurry to get in and dump their kids and then trying to back around, you end up with a line.
I'm glad you asked. We've spent a lot of time on that. So this area over here, if you're familiar, it's a significant slope. So there's no ability to add a reasonable driveway in here that's not 25% slope. It's severe. We are working with Zell2. We are back and forth on a cross-access agreement to the parcel to the north. So once they develop over here, this will connect, and there will be a second driveway over here. And you'll see later on our development plan, there is a hammerhead here that will allow internal turnaround. One of the features that KinderCare is very, very strict on is every parent parks, walks their child in, buzz them in, then they leave. There's no pull up to the door and let the kid run in. So it's a park and deliver.
And I guess this is probably an appropriate time to bring up that we're looking at final development of the entire site, and through the comprehensive plan, just as a reminder to everybody, we looked at the Babcock corridor as a place to put sidewalks from end to end, from Vincentian to Vincentian. And the trigger to that is going to be a traffic signal. Parcel C was always going to be the trigger mechanism for the traffic signal. The daycare isn't enough to trigger that. So what we said, asked corporate to do, was do a traffic study for the entire development. Next month, you'll be seeing a proposed development for 2 restaurants where TGI Fridays was. And I have also asked them to take the northernmost lot and show a proposed entrance, anticipate a use, and make sure that there is adequate site distance as part of their proposal. So there are several things that they're going to be doing.
Well, the traffic signal is going down, further down Babcock.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah, and
it's not gonna be up here.
No.
No, it's going to be, and that's the trigger mechanism for the sidewalk. Start the sidewalks on Babcock from end to end, or from Vincentian to Vincentian. We can't get it to McKnight.
And will the restaurant that's there now stay?
For the moment. The Chinese restaurant, yes, for the moment.
It's across the street.
It's staying for a, may not be staying long, but it will be
Oh.
there for at least 7 months to a year.
Oh, okay.
Bruce, would this be the appropriate time then to talk about the exception to the sidewalk along Babcock?
Well, when we get,
Okay,
we'll get,
okay.
well, yeah, since I brought up sidewalks, heck.
I was wondering that
It just
anyhow.
doesn't show, let's look at the existing conditions. Where's your grading?
Further down.
Oops, there it was. Or is this is it. So go ahead.
So as the site currently sits, all along Corporate Drive, and I did confirm the sidewalk does go all the way down to
And
the
the whole way
entrance.
out,
What's that?
everywhere.
Yes. Ordinance 1313.17 requires that we place a sidewalk on any property line that abuts a public right-of-way. We're seeking an exception to that for the property line abutting Babcock Road up along this edge. Looking at the property, from the edge of the roadway, it goes straight up. And as it sits right now, this would stub into the middle of a 3-point intersection and would go to nothing developed on the north end. And as Bruce had talked about, the east side of Babcock with Vincentian will be getting the sidewalk up to the intersection with the crosswalk into the development. And so we're seeking an exception to not place a sidewalk along the western side of Babcock, on the back side of our property. It serves no purpose for us, and I think it creates a potential safety issue.
Yeah, our sidewalks have always been planned, well, not always, but since Ascension went in, have been planned on the east side of Babcock.
Are you seeking an exception or a modification?
Modification. It's called modification according to the way we do that. And actually, the modification is, even though 1313 says that, it's actually coming from the Land Development Code.
Okay.
As opposed to the zoning ordinance. That's why we can ask for a modification.
Okay.
So there are sidewalks in the front?
That is correct.
And on the,
And I believe on Corporate, it runs all the way from end to end.
Yeah,
So
and
from
then-
the
Are
north
they
end
already
of-
there?
With this development in Zell2, it would run the entire length of Corporate then?
It exists, that's
From
correct.
Babcock to
Yes.
Babcock? Okay.
yes, and it's actually on the west side of Corporate, it goes out to McKnight. As close as you can get.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it
from-
actually wraps around,
From that
yes.
intersection, okay.
Yes.
Wait a second. It doesn't go, this end is touching one end, part of Babcock. The other part of the, what you're going to be doing doesn't come to the east side of Babcock, does it? I mean, it doesn't go clear around. There's
No, on the west side of Babcock, it goes out to McKnight.
Yeah, but, okay. I thought you were saying.
No, it's, no, there's nothing in the back, no.
Okay.
Can we get an overview of what
The
you're talking
parking
about?
lot's actually
Because-
there.
To show,
Yeah,
so you
it's
can
right
show us
there
where the
now. Already
sidewalk
exists, huh?
is?
Most of it, we will be cutting some of it back,
Make sure that we have
resurfacing
the
it.
entire-
Yeah.
Do you have a entire site plan, John? I guess this is as close as we get to it. So what we're talking about is, this is the site, this is corporate, this is Babcock, this is McKnight. The site is right here, so the sidewalk right now goes to about right here. This part on the west side of on the west side of corporate goes the whole way out to McKnight.
Yeah, it does. The sidewalk looks like
Yeah,
it
it
ends
does.
right where
Right.
that wall is in the garden.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're asking for relief on the back
On the
side.
back, on the
Back
back
side.
side, yes. That's a very steep slope, and I can't remember how high we said it was. I know we said it's like 120 feet to the nearest residence
Yes.
across
So-
the street, so this is about 60 to 80.
When this light triggers this, we're going to get a sidewalk on the other side of that road anyhow, on Babcock anyhow.
Yeah, right now, Vincentian is obligated to install up to their property line as part of their development, when they did the
Which is-
housing development.
Which is essentially McKnight.
Is it all the way to McKnight?
No, it
No,
only
no.
goes to their entrance.
Only
From
to their
From
entrance,
their
okay.
entrance north.
You could cross over and.
You're talking
Straight
about
from
Perrymont
here.
now? Where are you
No,
at?
no,
I'm trying to
no,
follow.
No, it's
No.
the driveway.
Show where,
Oh,
just
across.
before-
where
Okay.
Vincentian
I'm on
would have
MapQuest
to
trying to
put.
follow this.
This is Vincentian down
I
in through
see.
here. We're looking at the sidewalk from here to here, and then it crosses at the signal, which will be right here at
Okay.
Corporate and Babcock.
So it'll be a diagonal crossing?
No, it'll be a plus, it'll be right at the signal.
And how about from Vincentian going south, I assume that is?
Yes.
Vincentian
That's
south.
towards
More
McKnight.
than
East,
No,
east, you're thinking
we
east.
did not obligate them to do that. We didn't really see a way for them. If you're familiar with that intersection right there, it's sort of a bad intersection going there, and there was no easy way to get people going across there. Our concern was how, at the time we did Vincentian, was how are we going to get people, assuming people were going to walk, and that's not likely, but how we're going to get them across Vincentian over to McIntyre Square. And there is a route throughout the plan, although it's very steep, and something with a lot of steps, there is a way to do that. But we didn't want, council at the time did not want people to walk out to McKnight and then try to navigate that narrow spot down McKnight toward what's now the block at Northway and McIntyre Square.
It's a shame.
So this would allow them free of putting in any sidewalks?
Yes, they're already in. They were installed, corporate put sidewalks in the entire length
Mm-hmm.
on both sides at the time of development.
Oh, you said one provision of the, I think 13.21, is that what you said?
17.
17? Requires you to, well, if it's a hardship, you don't have to put the sidewalks. And Bruce came back with a land development code, I think that's 1360 some. Which one, why does the land development code prevail over the zoning code?
Because this is land development, it's not a zoning matter. The zoning, we put that in, as I understand it, we put that in
The
the
zoning
zoning
in-
code for retroactive if we decide we want to make people put sidewalks in at some point in time. We have the ability to do that through the zoning code. We also regulate the sidewalks through the zoning code for maintenance.
Well, my recollection of 13.17 is that you have to have a permit for that to be enacted.
Not sure what you mean.
Well, you have to be doing something in order for 13.17 to apply. You have to have you have to be doing something. You have to be doing something that requires a permit.
You need some type of a land
Yeah,
development.
yeah, right.
plan.
I don't see that written anywhere.
Well,
I think it's just it's in there. It's in there for the
yeah,
purpose
yeah.
of,
I think it's in there.
we would have to take an action in order to make it happen,
Okay.
but it's still a requirement. But it's in the land development code.
Yeah, I
that we
know,
require the
it's in the
sidewalk.
development.
So my thoughts on it are the sidewalk already comes out to the point of that garden, that, you want to call it a garden, that the McCandless Corporate Center signage area where it's,
Mhm.
and it wraps, the garden makes a point and wraps around, headed north again on Babcock for about 240 feet before it's directly across the street from where the sidewalk on Vincentian starts. It's a little steep there, would require a little bit of a retaining wall, but it would make the loop around Corporate to the Vincentian parking lot, or sidewalk, which then brings you all the way into North Park. So while I don't necessarily think that they would need to go all the way around, because it does get really steep and really crappy, at least bring something around that point to a certain point.
To here?
No, this here is this is Corporate. The sidewalk actually ends here now. I'm saying run it around this tip here. Let me bring it back to.
It currently ends right
Yeah.
where the colors change there. And that
Right.
lines cross.
That's actually, I'm talking about the point that's missing. It's
Going
cut
out-
off.
out the- yeah. It doesn't go the whole way out to the end.
No, it doesn't.
I don't
It
know why
goes.
we stopped it, or why they stopped it there. It
And
stops.
that point is the end of our property line right there, and then the rest of this is part of the Zell2 development for their signage.
Okay, so could
That's
that
more or
be
less
something?
common area. So Steve, when you're looking at this, and you can see these are all, I think these are 1 foot
1
contours,
foot
2 foot.
contours.
You can see the steepness of this slope and see how far it goes out.
No, I
into
know
the
it's
street.
steep. I'm not.
And in fact, if we start cutting into the hillside, they're gonna have to do geotech and all kinds of other things. And even just to put, I mean, we're looking at severely steep slopes, not just minorly steep slopes. For a lot of it, not for all of it. But they've had to do a lot to maintain that hillside over the years. There've been some heavy rains where it's washed out onto the road and they've had to cut it back.
It's a real shame. How steep is that? That backside's even steeper. Get me a little man in here.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. Up 90 go.
There wouldn't be a way to run the sidewalk along the southern end of the property on that V shape, straight down to Vincentian? That V, yeah.
Along the property edge, you're talking about?
Right, along the property edge, straight down to the Vincentian.
Oh, just cut
Driveway.
through there,
Stop
that's
it there.
pretty steep there too.
I know it's fairly steep, but
Would be looking at, I don't know what the slope would be, but.
I'd have to dig into
it looks
that.
to me like
These
it's
are
about a
ones-
12 to 15 foot height difference.
Yeah, so
We'd be cutting out a fair amount of vegetation right there to do that.
Right, I see that.
Would that be like steps? Would it be steps that you would need to put there?
Yeah, that might be a way to do it too.
Or,
But it
I
would
mean-
bring you literally right to the end of the Vincentian's driveway almost.
But I mean, think about it. Look at the sidewalks in Oakland. I went to Pitt. There are some steep hills in their sidewalks. So why not? I don't know. I'm all about sidewalks just because we need. to
Well, I'm
make
about
sure-
the not. I hate dead end sidewalks.
Yeah. and
This
connect-
makes a loop all the way around.
But it's gonna be a dead end because you can't get back, without putting a severe wall in, you can't get back to corporate.
Why can't you do like a
That's
boardwalk?
not true.
Wait, no. Why can't you do like
That's-
a boardwalk
If you were to,
on like a decking?
if you were to have the sidewalk, it comes already here to here. Bring it down here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Vincentian driveway right across the street.
Okay,
But you can't cross there, right? That's
Why
the
can't
middle.
you cross here?
Is it like the middle of a road?
Yeah, it's a
So,
middle
the
There's a
background.
crosswalk in there.
You can't.
not in the middle of a road, you don't wanna put a.
Babcock's not that heavily traveled.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow.
10,000 cars a
can't.
day, at least.
Babcock.
We used to cross McKnight when I was 12.
Why not? Why not?
There were
like
more
a
cars on
boardwalk?
McKnight than there are on
You
Babcock.
could get past the horses quicker then.
Why not a raised boardwalk?
No, that would be,
Like decking. No, I'm being serious. Because that's not.
But it still goes out to no
Would still be
place.
cut.
Yeah, it's like, where are you gonna get, where's it get you?
Where's it taking
cross
you
the
to?
street to Vincentian, which brings you all the way down to
So then why not go the right way and come in a safe crossing?
Why not just do like a boardwalk and run all the way down to the next property with it?
Can we
and
make
continue that?
Vincentian come another 240 feet up
I'm not,
on their side?
not retroactive.
How are you gonna do that?
Can we talk them into it? Can we?
They're still complaining about the one they're putting in, I don't know if you've seen that nice little bridge they put in.
That's across the street.
All
It
right,
just seems a shame.
all right, let's let him go on while we think about this.
You wanna scroll back up a little bit?
Wait a minute, one too many.
Then, we can move down for demo. So that's just, per the picture on the front sheet, that's what our standard elevation is gonna look like. Front, back, north, south sides. And to the next one.
How many children does that accommodate?
Up to 150. And so then this is what our proposed site plan is gonna look like. You can see on the parking area where there's, grayed out areas, this to the detention basin has been carved out. At the request of only having one entrance currently, we have a hammerhead in here for turnaround on our dumpster location there, so trash won't be turning around right in front of the building. If you look at the detention area, you can see it's significantly larger. And that was sized with all of this asphalt here, which is most of being removed. So there's gonna be some surplus detention capacity. These dark gray areas here are the outdoor play areas. They are all fenced. All the gates swing out from the building as a point of egress. I think that's gonna be one of your concerns. This doesn't show it, and there's this later on the slide, we've added security cameras as well at the front door and the back corners, just for security around the facility, for staff and for students.
I have a question here, if you could clarify, please, you talked earlier about eventually there'll be an exit, two entrances, I guess, to this place.
To the left.
Down to the left.
Yep.
Could you, with your red dot, show us how a driver would access this location? I guess they're coming from
Would it
Babcock. Would they-
depend on the
It's
new-
right in, you can access from either direction. So you'd be coming from either this intersection or from, Babcock corporate around here. There'll be parking anywhere in
Well,
here.
where are they coming from, sir? That's what I'm not getting. They're coming from Babcock and then
They'd
turning.
either come from Babcock or come from McKnight.
Corporate Drive is the only place they
Well,
can
they
pull in
have,
right now.
they get onto
Yeah, this
Corporate
would-
Drive
Corporate
either
Drive would
from
be the only
Babcock or
driveway
from
in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You either access corporate via McKnight or via Babcock,
Correct.
and then up
So
the
either
hill.
down here or back up around the bend, it would be up about here.
Now, when you're speaking of Vincentian, you're talking about those patio homes or whatever the technical designation is.
Back here on the east
I mean,
side.
how would one cross that road? That's a pretty heavily traveled
Yeah,
road.
yeah,
Is there a way to get across there,
No,
other than with the balloon?
So Bruce, I think you had indicated the sidewalk would come up to the intersection of Babcock and Corporate up here.
Yes.
And the crosswalk would be across there, and then there are sidewalks all through along
Right.
Corporate Drive.
right, you're right. My eye doctor, too.
No, mine too.
North Park Ophthalmology?
You got it.
Is he good? I need to go see
Yeah, they're
him.
good, they're good. They're good.
While we're on this page and our fire marshals here, Fire Marshal and I have had some discussions about how we're going to access the fire hydrant, which is located right here. So you're either going to have to remove probably 2 parking spaces so they can get in there at all times, or if it's possible, to move it down here and pave this so that they have access to
And
it
increase
here.
that stub?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can do that. Okay. Which location would you prefer?
Well,
Towards the end?
I would rather it where it's unimpeded, where somebody can't, mistakenly park in the, fire lane and patch parking stall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can bump it to the left. that'd be
Can that
Absolutely.
stub be placed all the way to the property line?
Yeah, we could do that as well, because that is where the cross access will connect. So if we bring that all the way over and then add a little asphalt here, we'll hash it out, paint it out, so there's no parking, and move the fire hydrant over that should cover your needs.
I like it.
Okay.
That was easy.
So then this is our landscaping plan. In addition to everything that's gonna remain on the hillsides and along Corporate Drive here as well, we are supplementing quite substantially around the building, some tall growth trees. And at the planning commission, they asked for some additional screening that wasn't necessarily a fence in front of the detention basin. So we're doing some boxwoods and some white oaks, and there will be an easement for the township to access the detention basin in the event you guys need to complete any maintenance.
And we
So
do
that'll
that
be
with all the
gated.
plans, so in case we won't be maintaining it, but if there is for inspections and if there is a need for emergency maintenance.
Are these deer resistant plants?
Yes,
Boxwood's
we
really
had mentioned
good.
arborvitae, it came up at the planning
Yeah.
commission, we scrapped that idea. We've taken out some hazelnut shrubs as well, just being sensitive to allergies.
Right. Okay, great.
Alright, we can move on.
Is that detention pond good enough to do what it needs to do, Bruce?
Yes, it's been approved by the town engineer.
Okay, perfect.
And then this is the connection of our utility plans. Just about everything is on site. Water is the only one we'll have to come across corporate. That route will need to be revised to stub a main over to the hydrant just south of this or west of this play area. Just about everything else is we have public utility easements along the east side of Corporate Drive that we'll be able to connect to. And then the grading plan again, yeah, this shows better along this edge. Yeah, you can see how short a distance that is, and each line there represents 1 foot of elevation change. So the significant, the grade to put a driveway in there would be, in the wintertime, would be inaccessible. And then to further look at the grade down the east side.
This is the location we rezoned for the ability to put a medical marijuana center in. Is the
Grower
northern,
processors.
yeah, medical processor, is the northern lot, would that still be big enough and have the correct
Distance. Yeah.
distance? It would know, so we no longer have the ability, they no longer have the ability to even use that as that.
Not this lot.
No, they wouldn't be able to use the northern lot either, because it's not far enough away from.
It'd be too close to the
Aren't they doing some?
daycare.
Aren't they?
Right, it would be too
No, no,
close.
no, it's not, no, the daycare is for a dispensary.
Distribution.
Dis-
So,
So you can still grow it, so we could have marijuana growing 30 feet away from
You
the
could still
daycare?
grow a processor, but it has to be inside. And
Well, I
it's,
know that, but
I
there's,
don't like that.
some people have claimed that they can smell it, and of course, people make things up when they know something's there, I understand that.
it's
But they're-
possible, but unlikely. This will probably take that away, more than likely it will. I can't imagine someone's gonna try to do a grow processor in a small lot that's left. The lot that was there was okay. And Chris, if I'm not mistaken, then that's not a problem for us. We've met our obligation just because it got used.
We made it available.
We
made
made
it
it available,
The
wasn't
opportunity
used.
was there, now the town is full, so to speak.
So they can't come in and designate a
They
place.
can't, they would have a tough argument to say that we de facto excluded them from the canvas.
Yeah,
Because the property was available and someone else got there.
they lost their
years.
window.
Did you, I noticed you reduced the parking, which I appreciate, less, space, and you were gonna do a parking study, so 40, I know you went from 61 to 49. That's
Yes.
gonna be enough?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
And it's probably gonna further reduce by, well, we might be able to tack in the 1 or 2 that we'll lose by hashing out additional asphalt.
Okay.
So keep it about the same. That is suitable for our needs,
Okay,
absolutely.
all right. I'm glad you went down from that 61, though, that's.
How many
And-
kids do you expect in this size?
You said 150.
Up to 150.
At a
It
time.
probably won't be that on day one. It's probably gonna take 3
days.
years to get a full enrollment.
150.
Is that a standard daily
Yes.
enrollment?
Will you have a shuttle service to the local schools?
We do.
Okay.
And it's as needed.
Yeah.
It's to the local public and private
Yeah.
schools as needed. Yes.
Those are all my questions, that's all I got.
What's the average stay time in something like that? The average parent's in for what, 10 minutes?
Roughly.
To get their kid and
Yeah.
leave?
From observing the
50
facilities,
over 2
most
hours.
are 5-ish minutes. I mean, if they're like me, I'm running late in the morning anyways. I'm making sure they get in there and they're checked in and they're situated. 5 to 10 minutes, yeah.
What about size of staff?
20,
And that'll
so-
fluctuate based on staff, but 20. Yeah.
20.
Size of the home and not size of the
And the staff
20 staff.
uses the parking spots there, so there's actually 29 spots for the people who are coming in. Unless the staff's taking the bus.
And then this slide represents our restoration plan. It'll be synthetic turfs in the play areas. We'll be having seed and sod along and bring it all back to grade. There'll be mulch in the planters, some egg stone in some of the planters out here as well.
Synthetic turf still considered pervious?
Are you making that impervious?
It is a pervious surface, yes. It is designed to drain.
Drains through.
You'll see along, on the engineering plans, along this edge and then the back here and over here, we bury a 4-inch drain tile, about 2 inches from the edge. It's fastened and drains to that point. It is also perforated throughout, so you'll get seepage, but we'll maintain a 1 to 2% slope so that you won't have puddling. It will drain and run and also seep.
Okay.
It's a shame with that steep slope in the back, it'd be perfect for a zip line across,
I was
across
looking
to
at
that
the
sidewalk
seats
on the other side.
Now, why are we talking sidewalks?
To
I
Ben
got that idea.
Vincentian.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Right over
Well
to
done.
Vincentian.
I like it.
The people who live in Vincentian could zip line, the volunteer can do.
That's right.
This is-
They might need one of those gondolas.
There you go.
Yeah, we gotta get them back.
And we'll get a gondola from the back parking, from the back playground.
Focused again.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else?
I seem to be stuck. Okay. There we go. Lighting plan?
Yeah, this is just showing these lines around the facility are where the dark line on the inside is 1 foot candle. The slightly lighter line just outside of it is a 1/2 foot candle. We added some additional lighting around the sides and back at the request of the Planning Commission, just to provide additional security and safety around the facility. Parking lot's completely lit, and we maintain all the lighting on the property.
So this is a real good example for people to use about with the new LED lines, how sharp the cutoff is on these lights. If you can see that difference between a foot candle and a 1/2 foot candle, it's pretty amazing. Used to would be spread all over the place.
And
This is
then,
for Dan.
yeah, this is the 250-foot radius on the hose layer from the fire hydrants. The darker circle down here is from the existing hydrant. This will shift slightly, 20 feet or so, that way, but it provides complete coverage to the entire facility from the proposed hydrant locations.
And underneath there, we have the turning radius for Dan's fire truck.
And then just the sample material board of, we'll be doing brick, a split CMU face at the base. The peaks of the dormers have the metal roof. That's the trim color. We do some metal trim up around the fascias and soffits, and then asphalt shingles on the roof.
So for the next meeting, we just have to satisfy Dan's requirements and then come back, and council's going to direct us on the, somehow we'll get back to directing me on the sidewalks. But there we got it. So we have everything in place. Gateway have to do a final review to make sure that they've made all the adjustments that the Planning Commission and Gateway has requested, and PD also, so we just have to do a final review.
Okay, any questions, other questions by, comments or questions by council? On any of these matters? Any questions or comments?
Angela Woods from 533 Guinevere Drive. Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if Mr. Zutarsky could elaborate on the decision to use artificial turf rather than sod. on the play area.
Okay. Good.
Really, it comes down to a maintenance and a cleanliness. You get wetter weather, the sod will end up getting muddy. It's a cleaner. We haven't had issues, and I know one of the concerns would be the potential for like a rug burn. This sits as like a 2.5 inch or 2-inch field turf. It's soft, it's sanded, but the decision to use that really comes to a maintenance and then a cleanliness from alleviating muddy kids coming back in from playtime.
John, is the surface, one of the recommended surfaces for children to,
Yes.
fall and stuff?
In
that
fact,
we have for playgrounds?
us as the developer, we don't install that. KinderCare has their national, their corporate provider. So the turf itself is about 2 inches. There's an 1.5 inch pad underneath that with then a 1/4 inch no slip pad underneath that, and then it sits on grade.
And it's all pervious?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Good question, thank you.
Okay, I hereby adjourn the zoning committee.
I call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting. First up, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple announcements this evening. So everyone's aware, we are partnering with the North Hills Community Outreach this holiday season, collecting blankets, board games, toys, gift cards, and such for those in need this holiday season.
What was the second thing you said? Blankets?
Blankets, board games.
Board games.
Yeah, these were
So you said
specific from-
forkings, I'm like, I know that's not the right word.
Board games, toys, yeah, gift cards and such. We're collecting them downstairs. I think toys have to go in by the 18th for them to be distributed to those in need. Non-perishable food items as well.
Pocket knives?
Well, they may frown on those, but some of the officers could use some of them. Maybe. At any rate, the rest could be donated up till the 24th and still make it to families in need. The other thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is the Cop to Cop social event that we're co-hosting with the Ross Township Police Department. It last year was known as Coffee with Cops. That's going to be this Thursday evening from 6 to 8 down at the Starbucks on 7707 McKnight, near the Browns Lane intersection there.
The other McDonald's.
Yeah, correct. Where community members can come and share in some coffee and maybe some other light refreshments and meet their local PD, you know. It was a success last year. I think we did it at Convive. This year, since we're co-hosting with Ross, it's kind of on the border there. So,
What was the time again, I'm sorry?
yes, ma'am, from 6 to 8, Thursday evening. So, 3 days from now. And you folks have our report if you have any questions. I'm free to answer those.
Any questions?
Where's the facility going to be? I know where Browns Lane is.
Starbucks, just before Browns Lane.
You know where the Starbucks is, Mr. McKim?
It's on the right.
Isn't it by Seibert or Seibert?
Is it Seabird? I thought it was
No.
Browns.
No, that's further
No,
down.
that's further
Oh,
down.
that's further down, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's further
It's
down.
that, you know how you go by Mad Max?
Before America,
I know which
below
one.
America.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and then there's a bank, it's
Yes.
sandwiched between a bank.
You're right.
Yeah, near
Right.
Northwest Bank.
Yeah, parking's kind of at a premium there, but we're hoping for a very good turnout, you know. it's
But
positive.
KinderCare has lots of parking, you can park there.
Sure,
And the banks are right there, they should be closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely, there's some
Will we
parking.
bring Kahlua or?
If we don't know about it,
It's in Ross.
Steve, you gonna go out with a bang?
Any questions,
Right.
guys?
yeah, any questions?
Any questions?
Get control.
Yeah, no questions, okay. Questions, comments from the public? No? Okay, this concludes the Public Safety Committee meeting, thank you.
Call to order the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. You have received the checklist number 12 for dated November 7th, 2019 through December 4th, 2019 for $1,019,474.10 that were submitted to council and is posted on the website. Any questions about those, anyone on council? Okay, review the monthly financial summary and dashboard. Tricia?
Good evening, Council. You have before you the November 30th, 2019 financial dashboard. As you can see, we're wrapping up the year. Revenues are at about 95% of budget. Expenditures are about 86% of budget. I expect that percentages to go up slightly. For November, we have about 3/4 of the bills in for the full month. We're ahead of budget compared to prior year. You can see that November's expenditures are higher than previous months. Most of that is due to the transfer to capital improvements from general fund. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. We have exceeded budget on a few revenue items, so I do expect us to finish over budget.
Any questions? Review the public hearing on the ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance 1493, an ordinance approving the Town of McCandless budget, setting the real estate tax rate and other revenue sources, and setting certain appropriations for 2020 calendar year. I think Trish did a great job, and Bob, of reviewing that at the public hearing, and you have a list of what comments were made. There were very few.
Yeah, we're just
Two.
two comments at the between the committee meeting and the public hearing. We only received a couple of comments, which we have addressed. You also received information over the weekend, and I've handed out hard copies, a summary of changes that we've made to the proposed budget, some adjustments we made through realigning positions. We moved some money in finance from the meeting seminars to office supplies to address an office supply need. We've added funds and anticipate putting online a fully searchable version of the Code of Ordinances that should be much more user-friendly moving forward. Eliminated the proposed all-terrain vehicle in the police department. As we discussed, increased the police minimum municipal obligation to help us smooth out the transition to the increased pension funding as a result of the new actuarial valuation, and increase some contribution to the prior year fund balance. In capital, primarily we've added grant revenue that we hadn't previously anticipated in there, included a transfer from the transportation district to offset some capital projects, showed the expenses in the grant-related projects that were being funded, and made some adjustments in stormwater based on how we anticipated the work to be completed moving forward in 2020.
Well, that's very good. The code, the online code that's going to occur,
Yes.
do we get that from some service, or how does that work?
We're actually going to move the service to from Walter Drain Company, which is basically just a picture of the code and not searchable. We're going to utilize services from General Code that a number of different communities use.
So that company will, if I can interrupt you real quick, that company will then maintain updates to it, I assume?
Yes.
So anytime you go in there, you're no longer replacing pages in a binder. That's
you-
history.
What you'll be able to do, any of us will be able to do, rather than have those paper copies, would be to just simply click on the town's icon or link.
Will any citizen have access to that?
Any citizen will have access to it.
That's a great change.
Yeah.
Did I see that cost $7,000 or so?
Yeah.
That's surprisingly cheap, I thought, frankly.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think it's money well spent.
I agree.
amen.
You wanna give them more?
Well, they deserve it, I don't know. Hope they can deliver for $7,000.
They'll deliver. They have a history of
What's the
delivering.
company?
General code.
Okay, that's, a lot of people use that,
Yeah.
right?
Any questions on anything regarding the public comment or the changes? Please.
Okay. Review the public hearing on the ordinance tentatively identified as ordinance number 1494, an ordinance reappropriating certain amounts of money from within the general fund of 2019 budget. And that is in your pack, and we've seen that before.
And there were, yeah, you have a copy of the proposed ordinance, and I don't believe that there were any public comments.
There were no public comments. Any council comments on any of that? Notification of a resolution is required to approve the list of active volunteer firefighters received from Highland, Ingomar, and Peoples Town of McCandless volunteer fire companies eligible for Act 172 earned income tax in accordance with ordinance number 1466 as certified by the fire chief of each company and reviewed by the town manager. So this is, we get a list of individuals who meet the criteria for this tax exemption with Act 172. We all have those. You can look over there. It's a nice little benefit that we give our volunteer firefighters. Any questions about anything like that? Okay, notification of a resolution is required to be scheduled for adoption of the town's regular business meeting of December 16th, 2019, establishing the amount when competitive bidding shall not be required for contracts for labor, materials, supplies, or services at $47,235 in accordance with section 1303 of the town's home rule charter. Any bid or work or labor or supplies that are less than 1/4 of 1%, town council doesn't have to approve that.
Correct.
And we have to adopt an ordinance every year because it's that percentage of the budget, because the budget changes every year. We have to just adopt it every year, so that's what that is. Did I do good with that, Trish? Any questions about that? Okay. Notification of a resolution is required to be scheduled for adoption of council's regular business meeting of December 16th, 2019, establishing the rate of participant contributions of the Town of McCandless Police Pension Plan at 5% for 2020.
And this is just a
What they do.
housekeeping
Yeah.
item to confirm that that will be the continued contribution rate.
It's a defined benefit plan, though.
Defined benefit plan, but the town's required annually to
Yeah.
establish that contribution rate.
Are there any seminars or conferences anyone wants to announce?
Does the fireman's ball count?
He already announced that.
Dan did that.
No, put it in that.
Any public comment on any of the agenda items under Finance and Personnel Committee? Hearing none, the meeting is closed.
I'd like to call to order the Recreation Committee. Next week, we will announce the group that will be supporting our proposed fitness center, and we will announce that name next week.
It'll be, yes.
A little bit of excitement
At
building.
public meeting.
Little excitement building.
Right. That's why we're not saying it yet, it's right. Any comments from council? Comments from the, and close the recreation.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.